And welcome everyone to another edition of 90.9 FM WJAB's Yo Just Checking In. I'm your host, Marcus Sims. And of course, at this time and on this format, we like to let everyone know what's happening in the Tennessee from individuals, organizations, businesses, anyone who's making a difference in the community, artistically or by many other means, right? We are powered by 90.9 FM WJAB FM. And my special guest for this edition of Yo Just Checking In is a guy who wears many hats. So I had to write him down. So we're going to go with he's a poet, he's a spoken word artist, he's a producer, he's a writer, he's a lecturer. And the coolest thing with Hip Hop 50, he's a DJ as well, one of the 5 elements of hip hop. So we want to welcome to Yo Just Checking In Alabama A&M's own, the Tennessee Valley's own, Mr. Marc Lacy. Marc, how you doing, good sir?
All right, great. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for giving us a few moments of your time. And, and I guess we'll just start off with, first and foremost, congratulations on the huge book release that you had actually a few weeks ago. 8 books released at one time. That's crazy. That's bananas. I tell folks all the time, I struggle sometimes putting together one poem. But we're going to get into all of that, the eight releases that are out and much, much more. But Marc, I always like to ask my guests, first and foremost, about their origin story. So could you tell us a little bit about who Marc Lacy is?
Okay, well, listen, I'm just a Gemini, left brain, right brain, Huntsville native, Alabama A&M grad. And as my old man used to tell me, I am one person who walks to the beat of their own drum. You know, again, when I said left brain, right brain, part technical, part creative, even as a kid, I never liked to half do anything, and I was never really afraid to take chances. Now, mind you, taking risks, I mean, that's a double-edged sword, you know, but you learn and you keep moving on. So I have always worn many hats. I just didn't start wearing many hats. So I'm just doing what I feel that God has destined me to do.
And from everything, now, while you were on the Hill, if I'm correct, basketball player, which I like is so amazing because poet, author, lecturer, athlete, and if I'm correct, in the field of engineering as well. So it's a lot, as you said, Gemini, a lot of different hats you wear, right?
Right. And there's nothing, so I was multifaceted before I even knew what the word meant, you know, and again, as a kid, I never really went in the direction of the crowd per se, not because I was just trying to be different, you know, I just wanted to follow my own instincts, follow my own heart. And I've always been a proponent of creating your own path and opening up doors for other people.
Now, what I think was so cool at your book release, you spoke about your family, and you're not the only poet / writer in the family, correct?
That is correct. My dad has poems published in the American Poetry Anthology, and I actually found that out after I got published. So I didn't even know it, but you know, this is how God works. You know, a chip off the old block, apple does not fall too far from the tree. And, you know, I think that's a big blessing to be able to have those influences.
And so you would definitely say your father, your family has had an influence on what you've done on the spoken word poetry scene, right?
Right. Because my mom, when she was living, she was an educator, a computer science educator. When my dad was working, he was a logistician. So, you know, we had literature around the house. And, you know, not only that, I really enjoyed creative writing in my English, American, and world literature classes in high school, and then into humanities when I got into college. That's when I really found my knack for creative writing.
Wow. So, Marc, let's hop right to this. Let's just for everyone who's listening right now or who's followed what's been going on in the Tennessee Valley, they follow you online. Explain to us the concept of Marc Lacy dropping several books of poetry, and also we're going to talk about the Whiskey House trilogy as well. But explain to us the thought process, or just lay this out for us if you don't mind.
Well, the 2020s, I think, orchestrated that mindset. As we got into the 2020s, it just felt like the world was losing its mind. You had the pandemic, the social and racial issues that were going on, all of the conspiracy theories, the economic deal, and it seems like the world was angry. Now, whether it had a reason to be or not, that's a whole different conversation.
Hmm.
But just the reaction, the world was angry, and and a lot of us were isolated because of the pandemic. And whether you were teleworking or you just stayed at home or what have you, and there was a lot of uncertainty. And one of my favorite basketball players of all time, before he passed, well, I actually learned about this quote that he made after he passed. Kobe Bryant said that one of the biggest problems is that people assume that they have time.
Hmm.
And at that particular juncture, I was about 2 years from my previous publication. And I said, I just really have to open up the floodgates with my writing and my products because tomorrow is just not guaranteed.
True.
I just can't, I can't call myself methodically trying to release this and release that. I said, I've got this batch in me and I've got to open up the floodgates because, again, I don't know when I'm going to have another opportunity to do it. And plus, the Poetry Vault really should have been published a while back. I just did not take the time to get things arranged. And of course, one of the hardest things about publishing a book of poetry is not the actual writing the poetry itself, is organizing. So I had poems from the early 2000s all the way up to the present day that were featured within those 7 books within the Poetry Vault. And I'm a self-published independent author, and I said, whose rules do I have to follow?
Hmm.
You got now, of course, when you're self-published and you release that many publications simultaneously, you have to make sure that you're budgeting for it, and you have to factor all of that in your business plan, in your marketing, and you definitely have to be strategic about it. But at the same
Hmm.
time, uh, I just went ahead and went on faith, and I just felt that I really had to get this done. And now I felt that
Hmm.
I could not wait to do it.
It kind of reminds me of the idea of, once again, you mentioned the Gemini side, how we'll
Right.
probably be discovering new music from Tupac for the next 200 years or something. And of
Right.
course, there's going to be new music from Prince coming out every other week, it seems like.
Right.
So that Gemini energy where you guys got music or art located
Right.
someplace. I don't know, Mark, you probably have it up under your seat right now, another book or two that we haven't heard of, or, that's what it seems like with Tupac stuff. So tell us,
Right.
the different topics that you're dealing with in these 8 books. And then once again, ladies and gentlemen, make this clear. These are 8 different books he has out. So what are some of the topics
Right.
that you're dealing with on these 8 different publications?
Okay, so I will start with the Poetry Vault aspect of it. So the Poetry Vault is 7, and then my fiction thriller, Ghost of Ace Honeycutt, that is the finale of the Whiskey
Mhm.
House trilogy. So the titles of the 8 books are Ammunition, Crescendo, Expose, Enraptured Felicity, Beatific Ambrosia, Geometry, and Requiem. And I
Mhm.
think I named them all.
Mhm.
And so I'll start with the 2 love poetry books, Beatific Ambrosia and Enraptured Felicity. I wanted to pay homage to the African American woman. And that's why we have the lovely models from Huntsville on each cover.
Yes.
And I had a huge collection of love related poetry in the vault that was unreleased. And I said, why not package it up in these books in which I'm paying homage to the African American woman? Now, every poem in each of those books is not necessarily directed toward the African American woman, but each model has her own dedicated piece at the beginning
Mhm.
of each chapter. And I talk about all types of issues that come about during love and relationships, romantic love, agape love, I talk about experiences of the next person, and I've also embedded a few of my experiences as well.
Mm.
And so I thought that it would only be fitting to do this in those books, in those books of love poetry. Um, Also, when you think about expose, I'm exposing the truth, the real deal. Requiem, I'm telling the gospel. Ammunition, poetry that's, really penetrating your heart and your mind. Um, Geometry, I call myself, how can I say this? Um, I guess kind of creatively and poetically. Um, I kind of wanted to, you remember back in the day, they used, in the hip hop terminology, they used to say dropping science.
Right, right.
When the MC is dropping some serious bars, dropping some knowledge. Geometry is my dropping science book.
Okay.
Crescendo, um, bringing the heat. So, but when the reader reads these books, they can really say that, okay, well, this one poem can actually be in this other book. You see what I'm saying? One
Right.
of the beauties, one of the beautiful aspects about creative writing and poetry is that the beauty is definitely in the eyes of the beholder.
Hmm.
And one of my books, I think, Expose, I believe, I love writing odes. I have a series of odes. I believe it's in expose. It's in one of the seven. But I also have odes sprinkled in the other poetry books too. But there's a huge odes chapter in one of the books,
Okay.
where I'm paying homage to, Outkast, Jimi Hendrix, Peter, Paul, and Mary. I just love music.
Right.
But whether it's elevator, whether it's pop, whether it's funk, R&B, I got a couple of tributes to Prince in there as well. So I now another aspect about the poetry vault, the reader's going to see that a lot of the poems are reflective of my mindset back in the day, because they're going to read it and say, well, Mark wouldn't have said that in 2023. But it's going to be a sharp contrast to some of the current poetry that I have in there as well.
Hmm.
So, writers, when you write continuously, your writing style evolves, it
True.
matures, you find your voice. Back when I first started writing poetry and publicizing it, I really feel that I did not have my voice.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
what's interesting though, I'm not hiding that from anybody. I'm putting it all in the vault.
Wow.
I published it all in the vault for people to see.
Wow. Mark, can you talk to us a little bit about uh, the Whiskey House trilogy books? Because now those are poetry books. And what I think is so cool is you stepped away from poetry game and brought us this nice, suspenseful thriller trilogy of
Right.
books. Thus, it's called a trilogy. But talk to us about the Whiskey House trilogy books.
Okay, so actually in 2013, I started uh, publishing on social media flash fiction. I did not feel that I had the ability to write. I knew I could write short stories. I knew I could write scenes, but I just was not confident in my ability to put an entire book of fiction together. So I did several episodes or chapters of flash fiction, and I kept posting it on social media. And my readers were like, "This needs to be a novel, or it needs to be a movie." People on the outside looking in, when they're excited about a novel or a suspense thriller, oh, this needs to be a movie.
Mm.
But there is a serious process, when you're doing a screenwriting, it's a serious process, but it can be done. But that was the main thing that I got when I was posting that flash fiction. And
Hmm.
so um, I just created this fictitious venue called the Whiskey House in the flash fiction. And you know how some writers say, well, I just let my pen lead me to where it wanted to go. And thus, that's what my pen did. There was a kidnapping scene. I'm not going to give the game away, but it was a kidnapping scene in the first batch of flash fiction. and the Whiskey House was involved, and that's when it hit me. Curse of the Whiskey House, and this needs to be a whole trilogy. And so it's the Whiskey House trilogy, Curse of the Whiskey House, and it's a suspense thriller full of a lot of unexpected twists, a lot of unexpected turns. The reader is going to be flabbergasted at some particular juncture, but the pages are going to keep turning. And that's followed up with Viral Transgressions and closed out with The Ghost of Ace Honeycutt. For those who are familiar with the Whiskey House trilogy, Ace Honeycutt was a character, a very prominent and unique character who was introduced in the first book, Curse of the Whiskey House.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what happened in that first book created or orchestrated what the titles of the subsequent books. Because when I had trilogy in mind, I did not know the concept of those other two books. But as I was writing the first book and finishing it up, that's when it hit me. You know, sometimes you can't plan these things out. You just have to keep writing, and that's when it hits you. So subsequently, Viral Transgressions came out in 2018, and then The Ghost of Ace Honeycutt followed that up in 2023, and that closes out the trilogy.
Wow. So definitely want to remind everyone about these books. They're out now on Amazon.com, if I'm correct, and also at marclacy.com as well, right?
That is correct.
Now, Mark, let's step away for a moment. We're going to talk other things to discuss. Talk a little bit about your time here on the campus of Alabama A&M. How did your AAMU experience affect your writing, your poetry, spoken word game? We talked about how the family influenced, but how did your time here on the Hill affect you?
Okay, so good question. When I was in college, you know, I actually was asked to write poetry for certain occasions for different organizations. And, you know, writing and performing. I wasn't necessarily like performing spoken word per se, but I was, you know, I would write it and perform it at the podium off the paper. But at the time, there was no platform.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as a student athlete, I didn't have time to think platform.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it was books and basketball. That's all it was. Books, basketball, organizational meetings. But and I will just go ahead to say that students who are forthcoming as college athletes, please do not take it lightly. It is not an easy thing. It's an enriching thing, but you have to be dedicated. You have to be focused. And that took up most of my time, books, basketball, organizational meetings. I was not thinking about a platform at the time, but I tell you who was. He jumped in the game early. Matter of fact, I saw him this past weekend at the National Book Club Conference in Atlanta, and that's Omar Tyree.
Mm-hmm.
Omar Tyree, fiction author, producer, he jumped in the game early and created a platform for himself. He and I are in and around the same age. Of course, I never even thought at the time to even process a platform for my writing and performing, because I was just trying to I was trying to get my degree and get that engineering job.
Right.
And you know, if something from a hobby standpoint came about, then you know I would do that. But I wasn't thinking platform. My mind just wasn't processing that at the time.
Wow, that's incredible. And I think so the experiences here on the Hill somewhat molded. I think well, I'm looking at almost the work ethic and the grind that you use now in 2023
Right.
to do the things that you do, because to stay focused, student athlete, and then the
Mhm.
other activities you were involved with, and so
Right.
I think all those you add them all together. In 2023, you got the guy who does a serious grind. If you don't know anything about Marc Lacy's grind, no, this brother is always
Right.
grinding. Like you don't see any pictures of him with a cocktail or something on the beach side. This brother constantly grinds, and we salute you for that. Now, Mark, let me ask you. You touched on this earlier.
Right.
Pros and cons of self-publishing. For someone who's
Okay.
listening right now who wants to put a book out, could you give me a couple pros, maybe a couple cons on self-publishing? You've done it now for several books, obviously. What are
Right.
some pros and cons?
Okay, so first of all, I mean, you're going to find out that you have to get and stay hungry. You have to get and stay hungry and stay focused and focus on the process. Don't necessarily focus on just getting a book out. Focus on becoming the best writer that you can be, and also learning and studying the ways and the means of this ever evolving publishing business. Secondly, do not quit your day job. Do not quit your day job. Matter of fact, I mean, you will put so much pressure on yourself if you do that. Thinking, now, I'm not trying to discourage anybody from thinking that um, they can write a think and get rich book and become rich actually themselves. I'm not discouraging that thought process at all. But just speaking from a realistic perspective, I remember us early in the game, several of my cohorts talked about quitting their day job. That's fine. My thing is, you got to do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
That was not in my plan. My plan is, if I was blessed to have a day job, I wanted to kind of use that to nurture this side endeavor, or this passion rather. I don't even want to reduce it to a side endeavor, but this passion. But uh, pros is that you are in control of everything. You've got your rights. You're on the throttle. You can release what you want to release and when you want to release it. You, as far as creative control is concerned, you're limitless as far as you know what you create and how you create it. You're limitless as far as genres are concerned. You're limitless as far as number of publications is concerned. That is, if you've developed the budget for it and or want to sacrifice X, Y, and Z amount of funds. And again, the fund sacrifice, that just depends on how many books you're publishing, the manner in which you're publishing them, and are you going regional, worldwide? Are you just staying in the city? It's
Mm-hmm.
all different. Every self-publishing author has a different experience. Okay, cons, it's a grind.
Right.
Another con is that you won't get the worldwide distribution immediately that you get if you had a traditional book publishing deal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because these distributors already have these built-in relationships with these publishing companies. But you have to, as an entrepreneur, you have to create those relationships and create those inroads. You can get distribution, it just won't be as broad. Finances, you're going to be subcontracting editing, subcontracting typesetting, subcontracting graphics, subcontracting web development, subcontracting book manufacturing, book tours, promotions, marketing. You have to take all of that into consideration. And I mean, you have to think about all of that stuff if you just want to compete. But if you want to get ahead, you have to do it on a consistent basis and on a high level. And again, just like anything else in life, Marcus, the elbow grease that you put into your publishing brand is definitely going to be reflective in your track record and in the results.
Mm-hmm.
Again, your work is going to speak for you. Everybody always talks about doing a book. Some people do one book, get out the game. The game is too intense for some people. That's fine. But if you really want to make some waves, you have to be consistently dedicated to this grind. And I encourage people, don't just focus on self-publishing, study it, learn the pros and cons, the ups and downs, go to self-publishing workshops, seminars, go to different book events where there are self-publishing authors featured. Look up self-publishing on Wikipedia, but also learn what it takes to be traditionally published as well. There are some traditional traditional publishing deals in which you can still self-publish certain titles and have a traditional deal. So,
Mm-hmm.
but again, you can't. A lot of times when people say that they want to write a book, they want somebody to write it for them.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I've experienced, they don't want to do the grunt work. And again, unless you pay somebody to ghostwrite, you have to create a process and learn that stuff for yourself.
Marcus, we're wrapping everything up. I have to ask this question real quick. You're a DJ as well.
Right.
So, of course, Hip Hop 50, they're celebrating across the country, across the globe. Um, I have to ask this one, since you're a DJ and you DJ obviously different genres of music, hip hop definitely included in it. Just wonder, just to pick your brain a little bit. So, what is the first, can you recall the first hip hop
Mhm.
album, cassette that you bought, CD? And then also, what is your favorite hip hop album of all time? This is on your Mount Rushmore,
Mhm.
without a doubt.
Wow. Okay. So actually, my mom and dad bought Rapper's Delight, the 12-inch. And of
Okay.
course, I took it. So I consider that mine. Um, so we had, Rapper's Delight. Of course, hip hop was around before that, but that was one of the first commercially successful hits.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So we had the Rapper's Delight 12-inch. I think I bought Curtis Blow the Brakes as a
Okay.
kid. But it was all a lot of what I bought was Sugar Hill label, uh, Sugar Hill Gang and Grandmaster Flash.
Okay.
Those are my favorite two as a kid. And of course they were on the Sugar Hill label. But on my Mount Rushmore has to be Paid in Full by Eric B. and Rakim. And of course I got my Eric B. and Rakim t-shirt on.
Okay. Okay.
But Rakim is one of my favorite MCs of all time, if not the GOAT. But Paid in Full is on my Mount Rushmore for sure.
Wow. Okay. Definitely just had to pick your brain with that hip hop 50 celebrating, of course, and influences so many genres of music
Right.
worldwide. Mark, as we're wrapping things up, now once again, how can someone follow you on social media, and also how can they check out these 8 new releases that you have out right now?
Okay, as far as the 8 new releases are concerned, you can go to Amazon.com. I also have ebooks available as well there. You can also go to marklacy.com as well. All of my publications are there and should be on Amazon as well. And if you want to follow me on social media, Facebook, my fan page is Marc Lacy, speaker, writer, producer. I'm on IG as Marc underbar Lacy, and Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, Marc
Right.
underbar Lacy. You can find me on LinkedIn too. So, and I'm about to get this. I'm trying to get this clubhouse thing going with book clubs as well. So more to follow on that. But
Mm-hmm.
your basic ones, and I'm going to get my YouTube upgrade. I did YouTube a while back, and it's been kind of dormant. But I've got some more things, some more ideas as far as how I want to utilize that platform as well. And I also do, on live stream, occasionally I'll do a self-publishing seminar. But of course, the enriching things get the fewest clicks and likes. But
Mm-hmm.
that's what people request. But your reaction videos are the ones that get the most hits.
Right.
So, but you can find me on all the main social media platforms.
Right, you heard that once again, all the main social media platforms. Check out, give Marc Lacy a follow. Check out the great content, the great commentary that he puts out. And also, don't forget, go to Amazon.com for more information on how to get his books. Also, go to MarcLacy.com. You can get the books as well. The 8 books that are out, of course, the Whiskey House trilogy. If you haven't heard anything about it, if you're interested about a good suspenseful series of books, check out the Whiskey House trilogy as well. Mark, we want to thank you so much for giving us a few moments of your time. Alabama A&M's own, the Tennessee Valley's own, who's been a huge influence on the poetry spoken word scene. We got to throw that out there as well. Look, if you put one of the folks out there who's representing for the arts, spoken word, poetry, we got to definitely give Marc Lacy, Alabama A&M's own, his flowers in that one. So, Mark, we salute you and thank you for giving us a few moments of your time.
And thank you for having me, Marcus. It's always a pleasure being on your shows.
This is 90.9 FM WJAB. Thanks for tuning in for your latest edition of WJAB's Yo Just Checking In.